Hi, everyone. This is Mark Olsey with the class Make Your Marriage Great. And this is the 12th class entitled, You Need a Marriage Mentor. And here's why. You need a marriage mentor, and here's why. So if you're taking this course, one of the reasons I put this together is my wife and I, this last December, just celebrated 40 years of being married. I can't believe it's gone that fast. It blows my mind, but I'm so incredibly grateful for being married to the wife that I am and the blessing of being married 40 years. 1,001 reasons why it's such a blessing. Someday I'm going to do a class just on that, on the idea of being married for life. Tremendous amount of benefits. But one of the things I want to do in this class, and one of the reasons I put this class together, is I want to share everything I can think about that has been most helpful and most significant to my wife and I getting to the place where we are today, 40 years in and looking for as long as God still gives us together and walking out our lives together as best friends. So how do we get here? How can you get here? Those are the kind of things that go through my mind. And that's one of the things that brought me to the idea of speaking on this issue of getting a marriage mentor, and why I've entitled this again, You Need a Marriage Mentor. In fact, I would say you need perhaps several marriage mentors. And again, I want to share why. So again, married for 40 years we've been, but it's not always been easy. We've had times like you when the feeling of love has waned or even gone, sometimes for days, weeks, even longer. We have times of conflict. We have had, and we do have times of conflict. We have times of not feeling loved or respected by each other. 5 years into our marriage, we were feeling so disconnected, we just didn't know what to do. We have faced challenges with parenting, with intimacy, with work consuming too much of our life, challenges with God, challenges with decision-making, with finances, with in-laws, and even some outlaws, like when our house was broken into. But here's what's crucial. We have always had people around us we considered to be role models and or mentors. And that has made a huge difference in our lives. So what is a mentor? Well, in the simplest of terms, a mentor is anyone you can learn from. Now, one might imagine a continuum where on the one end, we might call it role modeling. Here we learn more from watching how someone lives out their life, whether it's healthy or not. Role models can be positive or negative. That's on this end of the continuum. On the other end of the continuum, I would put the word mentor, someone who is more actively involved in our lives on a regular basis, helping us to learn. Certainly there can be overlap, a great deal of overlap between a role model and a mentor as well. So some key aspects of mentoring. First is an ability to acknowledge a need or an area of lack. We have to have that ability. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to say, hey, we need help. Sometimes our pride doesn't let us go there. So we need to have the humility or the ability to acknowledge we have a need or an area of lack. Going right along with that, there needs to be a willingness to be able to admit that need and to ask for help. Some of us are more willing than others. Being unwilling to do that can be an incredible hindrance to getting a mentor and can be a real hindrance to experiencing the benefits of this. So we have to be willing to be able to admit that need. and ask for help. Third key aspect of mentoring is an understanding of the value that we gain from others. There are people all around us who have knowledge and gifts and understandings that we can gain from. It's crucial that we understand that. It's crucial that we have an appreciation for the time spent in learning from others. Because being in a mentoring relationship will take time from other things, but we see the value in spending the time being with a mentor. Finally, another key aspect of mentoring is having an appreciation for the idea of being a lifelong learner. My wife and I talk about this regularly, and so thankful that we're married to each other with that same value, that same idea. We both aim to be lifelong learners. So if we live to be 97, how old my mom's dad is today, 97, if we live to be that long, I'm still going to be learning, because I understand there's always going to be more to learn, and we're going to be lifelong learners. All right, I want to talk a little bit about there being different kinds of mentors. First of all, I just want to talk about people mentors. Okay, I'll explain what I mean by that. There's people who are older than us can be our mentor, and that's how we typically think of mentoring, someone older than us. But I want to suggest there's also people who are around the same age, and they can be a peer mentor, or we can be a mentor back and forth to each other. And then on occasion, there's even younger people that can mentor us. We can learn something from them as well. As long as I can remember, I have had older men and some older women in my life that I've looked up to as role models. I remember my grandparents used to live across the street from us, and we'd go over there regularly, quite often, and have dinner. And my grandfather would always pray before dinner. And I remember looking, opening my eyes, peering around when everybody else's eyes were closed, and I'd watch my grandfather pray. And I remember scratching my head thinking it looks like he really believes he's talking to someone, like he's talking to God. Ooh, that always intrigued me. It's like he really believed it. He was talking to God. That made an impression on me. Another man, I remember in third grade, I think it was, this man was a World War II veteran, and he helped me learn more about God. He often looked at me and spoke to me. He said to me, he always would say to me, "You're not a boy, but you're a young man that God is preparing to use." Having that big World War II guy speak that to me, that really impacted me in an incredible way as well. Huge role model and mentor in my life. There were others in my youth and more in my years away at college. One man in particular was a dean at the school I attended, and he spent time with me as a mentor in my life. Then in our married life, I myself have had a number of older men and a couple of older women that I've spent time with that I've learned from. And Zarin and I together have had a number of couples we've spent time with and learned from. One of which I actually just yesterday videoed an interview with that you can see in this week's class. So after we have the class, I'm going to open up all the contents in week 12, and you'll be able to see that video of me interviewing a couple, Pete and Karen DeGraff, who have had a significant peer-to-peer, we've had significant peer-to-peer connection with, and they've been some wonderful peer mentors to us. So we've also had a number of couples, again, who have been mentors with a similar age. Again, we call peer mentoring, that we've learned a lot from, and they've learned from us as well. I've counted up earlier when I was writing this and putting this together. I counted up recently probably 8 men currently in my life. And most of those are couples, but 8 men in my life that I consider as role models and or mentors. And again, as couples, they are the same, role models and mentors to Zara and I currently. These past several years, we've had a wonderful opportunity to learn much from a younger couple, Chris and Sarah Greenlee. They're probably 20 years younger than us. But Chris and Sarah have learned so much more in a few areas of life in the business realm and in their understanding of how to manage time and life. And we've spent quite a bit of time with them over the last 3 or 4 years, and they've mentored us in those areas. And we've had a chance to mentor them in ways too. So we appreciate them and learning from older people in our life, from peers in our life, maybe even from some younger people in our life. So these are mentors that have been directly involved with us. Then I would say there's another kind of category of mentors. I would say personal mentors or mentors from afar, if you will. These are people maybe you know just a little bit, maybe you don't know at all, but you admire them. You've gotten to know them. Maybe you heard them on a podcast. Maybe you heard them speak somewhere. I remember being at a large leadership meeting one time and hearing Zig Ziglar speak. And I was like really stirred. And just a one-time experience impacted me, even yet to this day when I get up and speak. Some of what I observed in the way that he speaks affects me and how I speak. So sometimes there are personal mentors and mentors from afar that we watch or listen to. And again, we've had favorite leaders or teachers we have watched or listened to. And we've had family and friends that we don't see often, but we connect with periodically that we really look up to. People more from afar, but still have an impact on our lives. Then another idea as far as the idea of this idea of mentoring. Sometimes we think in terms of having a mentor that just kind of helps us in every area of life. One person that we spend time with, and he helps us in a number or all different areas of life. And that's wonderful if we can find someone like that. But I would say more often than not in my life, or I'm not sure more often, but many times in my life or our lives as a married couple, we have connected with individuals or couples who have helped us in one area of life. So they've been a mentor, like Pete and Karen that I did this interview with, and you can watch it in this class. Pete and Karen have largely been mentors to us in their area of finances and budgeting and learning how to manage that side of our life. Now, as time has gone on, we've learned a lot from them in a number of areas, but that's been the primary area. There have been other couples that have made a difference in our lives when it comes to communication or when it comes to parenting or maybe keeping the flame alive in our relationship. Or again, as I said earlier, in the area of managing time. So we can find mentors kind of in different areas of our lives that we can look up to and learn from. So there's mentors for different subjects. Then I want to suggest another kind of mentor. And it's like what I would say a resource mentors. And so it just goes along with the idea of recognizing we all have much to learn. And where do we go? Well, we can also name those areas that we're not very strong in as an individual or as couples. And we can say, let's find resources where people have written them or put them together. And those individuals, through their resources, can teach us and equip us. So we find resources in books. We go to conferences. In an earlier class, I talked about the idea that there are marriage conferences we can attend. My wife and I have been to 12 different marriage conferences in our 40 years of marriage, and they've been very significant. We've learned much from every one of them. Those are mentoring experiences where individuals shared with us and taught us more about marriage. And again, I'm sharing this with you because I want your marriage to be the best it can. So look outside of your own marriage to say, who can we learn from? People mentors who are around us. People mentor us from afar, and perhaps even more afar. We don't know them perhaps very much at all or hardly at all, but we learned through their books or conferences that they put on or classes that we can attend. Or, for instance, the Pledge Talk learning community that this class is originally a part of. And if you're hearing this and not a part of that, you can go to community.pledgetalk.com to join that community. It's a community of individuals where we're all together wanting to learn how to experience the best of the best in our relationships. Well, why seek a mentor? Well, some of this I've already spoken of, but the first thing that comes to mind as I thought about this is just the idea that we all have so much to learn. None of us has everything in life figured out. We all have a lot to learn. All of us can attest to the benefits of having learned at least something from someone. If you just stop and think, oh, I've learned from perhaps a parent, from a friend, from a boss, from a coworker, from a neighbor, from a coach, from a trainer, from an experience. We've all benefited from learning from others. So there's that ongoing benefit of that we can always gain more knowledge, more understanding from a mentor. And like all walks of life, there are people further down the road than we are in our marriages who have had experiences and opportunities to gain knowledge and lessons in life that are invaluable. My friends, Pete and Karen, one of the things that we're learning from them right now is how to walk through very difficult times in life, because Pete, several years ago, was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Ooh, that's tough. And we've watched them for the last 4 to 5 years and been involved with them in different ways and are learning how are they together as a couple walking through some very difficult times in their life. The knowledge we're gaining from being a part of their life and watching that is invaluable. The last point I would say, when I think about why a mentor, I would say, why not? Why not seek a marriage mentor? There's no way you can go wrong in doing so. And you stand the opportunity for tremendous learning and growth in doing so. Well, where do I find a mentor? It's a good question. Where do I find one? So I don't hide the fact that I am a follower of Christ. And so one of the places that I find mentors, and I would suggest if you either are a follower of Christ or maybe not, but are at least open to it, is go to a church. Get involved in a church, the church that believes in Jesus and in God, and just start getting to know people there. And I can almost promise you there will be people there that would be good mentors for your life. So a church is a good place. Perhaps other types of friend gatherings, family gatherings, any kind of group gathering, even from a work environment. There are other people who could be possible mentors in various areas of your life. You might ask a friend. Hey, you might say, hey, we're we're struggling in this area, or know we could use some help in this way. Do you know anybody who's really good at this? Ask a friend if they would know of anyone. And in any of these gatherings or places, or just in life in general, could be a neighbor, just be watching and looking around and paying attention to people around you. And ask yourself, who seems like they have knowledge or experience in an area that we don't? Who seems to maybe be doing a little better? Who maybe is a little further down the road than we are? And somehow I think doing better than we are in this area or that area. Watch and look around. Pay attention and look for those individuals. And finally, interestingly enough, again, back to the idea of resources. As I put this together, I just decided if I wanted to find a mentor from afar who's written on the subject, where might I find it? So I just went to Amazon and put in the subject line, mentoring. And wow, there were numerous books on the subject, numerous books. One of which is by an author, one of my favorite authors, and that I've read a number of his books, and I love them. His name is Ken Blanchard. And he has a book on mentoring. It's entitled 1 Minute Mentoring: How to Find and Work with a Mentor, and Why You'll Even Benefit from Being One. And that last part is something I'm not even addressing in this class, but it'd be great to even read about it in the book. And I would agree that even when you become a mentor, you're going to be a blessing to someone else, and it will be a great sort of blessing, but you'll even learn from the process of doing that as well. But this book by Ken Blanchard would be a great book to read, and you'll find this book in class 12 in the resources, and a link to it there as a great resource to purchase. And I love, again, the way Ken writes, because he writes in a story. It's actually how I wrote my first book. I patterned it after Ken and how he writes a story to get a point across. So I love that. It's a great book to read on the subject. Well, once I find someone, a person that I like to perhaps mentor under him, how do I approach a mentor? Another great question. And I want to say, simply ask. Just ask. It may take some nerve, but push through it and ask. Maybe something like, hey, George or Tom and Susie or whatever, recently I've done some thinking about mentoring, or I've been thinking about how I could benefit from learning in areas that I don't have the knowledge or experience in life. And as I've been around you guys, or we've watched you, it seems like this is an area in which you guys excel. Would you be willing to spend some time with me, or would you be willing to spend some time with my wife and I, or my husband and I, and teach us what you know? Most of the times it'll be very flattering. And then I'd say, oh, I don't know, but you can encourage them to really, we think you've learned things in these areas that we'd like to learn from, and we'd love to just spend some time with you and ask you questions and learn from you. Would you be willing to meet? And I think most people would say, sure, let's plan to do that. And so you've begun the journey of being a mentee. Well, what happens when you get a mentor? Well, we do things like we spend regular time together, planned or unplanned. We just find ways to be around them, to intermingle our lives with theirs. We ask them questions. How do you do this? How did you get to where you are at today in this area or overall? What are some of the greatest lessons or ideas you can share with me or with us in this area of marriage? You will be surprised how much you learn, not only from conversations you have with a mentor, but by just being around them. Just being around them, things will just sink in. You'll pick up on something here or there, and will drive home, and you'll be talking with your spouse, and you'll say, did you notice when they did this or said this? That was amazing. I think we could do something like that, and it will just sink in. Well, those are my thoughts on mentoring tonight. So here's my challenge. I want you to pick an area in your marriage where together you would like to learn more. And then start looking around you to see who seems to do that better than we do. Or simply look around and just watch the couples around you to see who seem to be excelling in any areas that you're not. And when you find someone, simply ask. Simply ask. Then make time, follow through, and learn. You can't go wrong by getting a marriage mentor or several. You can't go wrong. And you have the opportunity for a much learning to take place as a result. So I challenge you to do this. And then finally, check out the rest of the resources in this lesson. The video from me interviewing a peer couple, and check out the book by Ken Blanchard. All right, that's all I have. Mark Olsey in this 12th class of Making Your Marriage Great. We'll see you in a couple weeks for class 13. Bye-bye.